Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Catherine. I'm a registered psychologist, and today I'll be chatting with you about ADHD in the workplace. We've been really fortunate here at Can Learn Society that we're able to provide monthly webinars on a number of different topics. These webinars are completely funded by the Alberta government with the hopes of educating and supporting one another that we may create a strong community during these challenging times. This is our 8th webinar, and for any of you that have missed any of our previous topics, all our webinars are pre-recorded and available on our website, so I highly recommend that you have a look. For today, let's dive right into our topic, ADHD in the workplace. Today's topic will go over a number of different areas. First, we'll discuss a little bit about Can Learn Society, who we are, and what we do. Next, we'll talk about how ADHD impacts our workplace and how we can find a job that might be the right fit for us, or what that job looks like. We'll discuss setting up structure and staying organized in our workplace, as well as having that work-life balance and what that looks like. Finally, we'll discuss when is a good time to disclose a diagnosis to my boss, and what are some work accommodations that I can ask for while I'm having those conversations. Finally, we have a number of websites, book, and community resources at the end of our slide for you to look into as well. So let's talk a little bit about Can Learn Society. For those of you who have heard our other webinars or presentation, you're probably already familiar. But for those of you who are new, welcome. Can Learn Society is a non-for-profit, and it was established by parents who saw that their children were struggling and wanted to advocate above and beyond just the school. From there, we've really grown. We work in a number of different areas. We have psychologists on hand who provide assessments and counseling, as well as pediatricians who will work side by side with a psychologist if needed. We provide ADHD coaching, adult literacy, family literacy, and other numbers of groups such as social skills and talking about adult ADHD. One of the wonderful things about our program is it is fully funded, which means that for some families and individuals who might not be able to financially afford some of these services, we're able to provide some financial assistance. We're constantly applying for new grants, constantly updating our programs. So I always recommend that you have our website saved and have a look because you never know what new areas we might open up as well. So let's dive right on in. ADHD in the workplace. I absolutely love the topic of ADHD. It's very close to my heart, and I think it's so important for us to talk about, to educate others, and to educate ourselves because we're always learning some new things. There's a lot of myths and incorrect information when it comes to ADHD. And one of the unfortunate parts is a lot of times we tend to view this with a negative light. So I want to start this presentation by talking about some of the positive characteristics of ADHD, some amazing qualities that you can bring into the workplace. Number one, the high energy. This is something I'm always impressed and blown away. When you are focused in, when you are ready, the amount of energy that you have, I almost call it like a superpower. For me, my energy kind of starts dying off at around 4 o'clock. But I work with many individuals who are able to really foster in that energy and work for long hours when needed, and it is amazing. Another thing is individuals with ADHD work really well with risk, with problem solving, with challenges, and they are not afraid to get outside of their comfort zone. Which means if something new pops up at your workplace, it's exciting. You want to look into it. You want to get to know it. You don't get intimidated by it. If there's a problem that pops up, even better. You're focused in, you're motivated, you're ready to tackle this on, and you work really well with challenges. And you think of the most creative ways to solve these problems. And it's really amazing how people with ADHD, how their brain works. It is really a superpower. Your also ability to hyperfocus can be seen as a strength. When things pop up unexpected, or there's a deadline, or you have to work on something and get it done, you are locked in and focused, and you're able to work those long hours and get things done. And that is really something that is amazing. Of course, within reason, this isn't something we should be doing every day, but these are some amazing qualities that we have. And this list is way longer than the few areas I have on here. ADHD is more than a label. It's down to the individual, and it's down to who you are as a person. And you have so many amazing qualities to add to this list that I might not even know of. Now, when it comes to ADHD, it's important for us to be aware and to understand our strengths, but also our limitations. There are some things in our workplace that can impact us and can be influenced by our ADHD. Number one, if things get repetitive, if you find yourself doing the same task every single day, there isn't a challenge, there isn't something exciting, this can feel rather mundane. And this is where you'll notice your productivity might decrease, your satisfaction, and your interest level. If your work involves long meetings where there's a lot of chatting, it can be hard to stay focused. If you are an individual who struggles with small details, that could also be something that's challenging, being able to have all the small details in place and make sure you don't overlook anything. Multitasking, that can be seen as a pro or a con. For some people, they work really well. For others, it becomes too much. It becomes overwhelming. Maybe you'll take on more than you can, and it's hard to stay focused and get what you need done. If you are working in an area where the topic is uninteresting, where it's just not motivating, that can definitely impact your performance. So if this isn't something that you enjoy, you will notice it, and it's going to hit you hard. And lastly, time management, missing deadlines, staying on top of things. These can all impact you, and they can all impact your evaluations at your workplace too, if this is something that you struggle with. So just as we have these amazing strengths and we want to foster those, we also want to be that awareness on where we need that support. This is important for knowing what type of job I should be looking for. This is also important in knowing what kind of accommodations I need to be asking for as well. So how do I know if my career is the right fit? Or how do I even know what career I should be looking at? It can seem quite overwhelming. Well, let me start off by saying a quick story. When I was in high school, we had to take a number of different courses. And one of the courses that we took involved us doing a questionnaire online. I don't remember the details of this questionnaire, but the whole idea is to give us a list of our top 10 career choices of what we should be. And I remember this list coming out and just kind of looking at it and saying, this is all over the place, or I have no idea. This makes me even more confused than directing me. Now, the reason why I bring this up is I wish we could all take a quick questionnaire or look into a crystal ball and say, hey, you should be a doctor or an engineer or a teacher. But life isn't quite like that, is it? It's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of figuring out what you're good at and what you enjoy, because sometimes what you're good at isn't what you enjoy. And taking that information to finding what is the right job for you. So this involves a lot of questions. There is no perfect career that I can match for someone with ADHD, because again, every individual with ADHD is different. It's not just a label. We do notice that individuals with ADHD often are more likely to be entrepreneurs or own their own business because there's a little bit more independence, interest, motivation, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily the right route for you. So it's important to ask yourself some of these questions. Number one, what are your interests? What do you like doing? Do you enjoy working with your hands? So you need a job that you really want hands-on. Or do you prefer actually more working with software and technology? Are you a people's person and you like talking and motivating and having conversations with people face to face. Write down a list of your interests, what you enjoy, and start off by saying what other people might mention are your interests. So, hey, I noticed that you like to do this a lot, or you like to do this, or you're very good at this. So write down those lists of interests. Number 2, think about your environment. Do you need a quiet work environment or a stimulating environment? So are you okay with going to an office, sitting in a cubicle 9 to 5, or do you need to be someone who is on site, who is working on their feet? I'm going to use a personal example for this. So I have a dear friend who is an engineer, and as you know, you can specialize in different areas when you're an engineer. The first position that this individual had was quite an office job. It was sitting at the office 9 to 5, a lot of phone calls, a lot of sending emails. And that wasn't quite the right fit for them. When they noticed that they were able to go on field, so actually go to the areas that were being constructed, work with people, they noticed a huge change in how much they enjoyed their job. So that's something for you to think about. Are you okay with that little cubicle, or do you need something that's more active, more stimulating? Do you need to be able to move around? Is that something that's important with you? Some individuals with ADHD have a challenging time sitting still, and that's okay. So think about that when you're writing your list. This is something that I absolutely need. Think of looking as a career the same as buying a house. You have your wants and your needs. So when we went to look for our house, we wrote down a list of our top 3 needs. These are things that were set in stone. I absolutely needed in my house. Then we wrote our list of top 3 wants. So things I would like, but not necessarily. It's not the end of the world if I don't have them. And just like when you're thinking of your career, you want your wants and your needs. So are you a mom and you need a flexible schedule? Are you an individual who struggles with sitting and you need to be able to move around? Think about it just like you're buying a house. What are your wants and what are your needs? Then what are your strengths? What have people in the past told you that you're really good at? What have your past job evaluations mentioned about you? These are great things for you to look into to see where does that strength arise from? Are you great with leading teams? Are you better working on your own? Great questions to ask. Another good one is, how is your energy level throughout the day? Are you someone who's bright early, get things done? Or do you actually find that in the evening is when you have the best energy, when you get most things done? Use that to kind of think about it. And think about your current job. What part of your current job do you enjoy the most? And what part do you dread? Every job is going to have something we love and hate. That's normal. But this is really good at guiding us for what might be the best fit for us. So if in your job you hate the repetitiveness, you dread that it's so repetitive, well, doing something like accounting might not be the best fit. No offense to any accountants out there. If you are someone who enjoys the teamwork aspect of it, looking at a job that might involve you working with other people might be something to consider. And last, of course, it's so important to look at your job experience and your educational background. You are not tied to this, but you've spent a lot of time and energy in whatever field that you're in, and you need to consider, is this a field that fits for me, or do I need to take a whole nother route? Another route might involve taking another certificate. It might involve a complete change in career. There is no right or wrong age. There is no right or wrong choice when it comes to this. What it's all about is your current career fitting you? And if not, do you feel that you might need to take a change in pace or a change in careers completely? It is okay for you to make that decision. As long as you've put your time and thought into it, you've talked to people around you who know you, and you've talked to other people who are involved in the career to see what they think about it and if it might be the right match with all the other questions that you've asked yourself. Now, I'm no expert in how to find a job or where to apply or anything like that, but I do know that there's some important basics that we want to have down. Number one, you want to have a solid resume and cover letter prepared. I know with the pandemic, it has been exhausting looking for jobs, and I know it hasn't been glamorous. Sometimes there aren't really much to pick from, but it's important that the jobs you do apply for, that you give the strongest that you can. So have a resume and cover template. I've recently stumbled upon this website. It's called My Perfect Resume, and it has been a lifesaver. There is a fee for this website, so I think for 2 weeks you have to pay $3. So for me, that was very reasonable. But you go on this website and you can either start from scratch or you can upload your resume. And it really helps create a beautiful template. So they give you multiple options for you to choose from. But not only that, it gives you recommendations for the job titles that you've had. So if you're saying, oh, I feel like, I don't know how to word things properly, it's hard for me to do that, or I don't know what else to write about this job position that I had, it actually gives you recommendations, and you can even click from those recommendations and then just add them straight into your resume. So I absolutely love it. Not only does it do resume, this also helps with cover letters. So this is a great way for you to create a template. From after you've paid the fee, you can save it as a PDF or a Word. You can edit it. It is yours to keep. But it's a great template for you to have. Next, set up a time for job searches. So you want to make sure you're not missing any opportunities, especially if you're actively looking. You also want to make sure you're not hyper focusing and going down a deep rabbit hole where you're spending 5 hours a day on this, because that's not healthy either. So set up a time for you, whether it's in the morning or at lunch, set up maybe an hour if you would like, for you to go through jobs and apply. And make sure that you subscribe to different job searches. I just recently found that you can even have job advertisements on Facebook, which it just blows my mind. Facebook keeps expanding. But have a look at those. Indeed, LinkedIn, Facebook. If there's a specific company you're interested in, go to their website, connect with people, and subscribe as well. So Indeed has an option where you can look up, for example, if you're interested in a civil engineer, you can have that tag so it sends you emails whenever a new civil engineer position pops up. Keep your options open and just apply, apply, apply. Sometimes job applications or advertisement might not seem like it's the best fit. It might not. You never know until you sit down in an interview. So if there's even a possibility that this might be a good fit, apply, sit down, chat with them, tell them some of your concerns, or ask those questions to get to know them better, because you never know. Next, personalize that resume and cover letter. So once you have your template and you found a specific job posting you want to apply for, make sure you personalize it to them. This sometimes can be a little bit easier if you've narrowed it down to a specific field you're applying for. But if you're keeping your options open and you're applying to different things, it might be good to have a number of different templates. So one that's maybe focused more on tutoring, one that's focused more on teaching, one that's focused more on retail, whatever it is. And last, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't even know where to apply for, you don't know where to start, career consultation is definitely an important thing for you to invest in and ask. So working with a specialist, a trained professional who can help narrow down those options and kind of help you understand what might be a best fit would be a great thing for you to look into. So let's talk now about the working environment that we have. Whether you're working at home, in an office, or wherever, it's important to make sure you set yourself up for success. You set structure in the workplace. Your environment is super important. If it doesn't feel comfortable and practical, it's going to impact your entire focus and distractibility. So if you're working from home, set up your workplace that is only used for work by you. I know this can be challenging when you have limited spaces, but even if it's just a small desk or a corner of a table or wherever it is, find a designated space for you to put that's where you're working. That's where you go every day. The problem is if we use things like our bed or our couch or wherever's lying around, your brain actually doesn't get into work mode. And it's challenging for your brain to stay focused when there's so much things around you and it's not a typical place where you do your work. Number 2, set up your office. So whether it's the work or the working at home or in an office space, there are some practical things that you're going to want at your desk that are handy right next to you. So things like a timer is going to be super important. You can use the timer on your phone, you can use a digital timer, or you can actually have one of the old-fashioned ones, whatever it is, having that around you. You might need something to fidget with, and it doesn't have to be like a huge fidget toy. It can be something as small as like a screw, or like the nuts and bolts for you to fidget with, but something that kind of helps you fidget with as well. Some individuals like to have small candies near their desk because it helps stimulate them, it helps keep them focused, so having that. Some individuals might even ask for a standing desk if they're individuals that prefer movement. So think about what you need and set your office up. Put strategies in place to reduce noise distraction. So that means I need to get headphones in, get noise canceling headphones, get them ready. You might even want 2 if they're the wireless ones that need charging, just in case that you're set up. If that means I need earplugs, get earplugs. If that means I need to ask for maybe a personal office because I get so distracted when I share with others, so be it. Ask for that option if it's available to you. Tell your family and friends. This is so important if you're working from home because the work hours from home can get quite gray. And so it's important to set up your work hours and tell your family and friends so they don't disturb you. So, you know what? I'm working from home and I can get quite easily distracted. So I've set it up that from 9 to 12 is my morning and from 1 to 6 or 1 to 5 is my evening. I would appreciate if we did any plans maybe after those so I can really do my best focus and productivity during then. Let those around you know, because a lot of times family and friends think, oh, you work from home, we have more flexible schedule. And although that's true, that flexibility sometimes can end up becoming a whole day of going out and not realizing it, and then having to do extra work later at night and our brain kind of feeling all over the place. And lastly, plan in advance to keep healthy habits. So if that means I'm working from home and I need to plan in a time for me to work out or to go for a walk during lunch, do that. If that means you're working from the office and you know you need something because the day feels long and you start feeling on edge, plan a time for you for those healthy habits. I know individuals who used to bike to work in the morning, so they got that movement. I know individuals who would go to the gym or go boxing during lunchtime and they had a shower in their office. Whatever it is, a walk, it doesn't have to be anything extreme, but plan healthy habits, whether it's making your lunch, doing something for movement to make sure you're taking care of yourself and you're not forgetting your important habits as well, like your health. Next, we want to make sure that we have a good mindset when we're going to work, whether that's from home or in an office. It's surprising that how you dress can impact how you feel, can impact your motivation to work. So having your mindset ready, making sure you're dressed for work, not staying in your PJs or wearing something that you would normally wear at home is important. So something that makes you feel like you're ready to work. Schedule your breaks as well, your lunchtime. So stay organized, have that mindset of not, oh, I'll just eat lunch whenever I'm hungry, I'll take a break whenever, but actually having that designated time of when you know when to work and when you know it is your time for a break. Timers, again, I'm going to talk about this constantly because when we do things like either hyper focused or struggling with focus, it's always important to have something to help us understand where our time's at. So if that means I have a meeting at 2 o'clock, even just setting a timer that it's going to ring 10 minutes before the meeting to help me keep on schedule. Setting boundaries. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when it comes to our work-life balance, but it's important for you to set boundaries of what your work is going to look like when you're going to be at work and what you'll be doing. Next, it's important for us to stay organized. So have your list of to-do, what you're going to do every morning. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I get a post-it note, or sometimes I even just write it on my Samsung phone notes, but at least have a list to keep you accountable because so many things are going to pop up that you're going to forget. If you have important documents that you tend to misplace, have a designated box or file or whatever for those designated documents that you can put them right in there. You know where to go so you're not looking around. I say this because sometimes having like a binder where you hole punch, you put everything into place, that's great. Not always practical because it takes time and effort. And with ADHD, we tend to do whatever pops to mind. So if I can't do this right away, I'm going to put it to the side and I might lose that document. So having just that important box. Use your visuals. So if you have to complete a number of tasks that involve quite a bit of detail, one way to stay organized is maybe having a visual checklist or something on the side, or even for your planner, but something visual that you can see can help you stay on track. And again, set those reminders. If you're someone who gets easily distracted or has important meetings that you forget, setting those reminders ahead of time. And lastly, having someone to keep you accountable. That could be someone at home, that could be someone in the workplace, but if you know that there's something that you're struggling with and there's somebody that you trust, just asking them, hey, I have to send this in by the end of today. Can you just double check with me that it got sent? Or hey, I have to finish this paper by today for this project. Can I just sit next to you? Because sitting next to you helps me stay more focused. So even having someone else in the room can help you with that. And lastly, we want to plan ahead to make sure that we're successful in our work. We know things can get boring, my mind can wander, it can be hard to stay focused. And we want to create what I like to call these dopamine breaks ahead of time. The reason why I call these dopamine breaks is we know that individuals with ADHD are typically seeking dopamine. Dopamine is what the signal that gets sent to your brain. That's kind of like a nice reward signal. So you eat a nice piece of cake, you feel satisfied. You get a hug from someone that you care about lots, you get those dopamine signals, kind of like that feel good. However, we know individuals with ADHD, when it comes to dopamine, they're constantly seeking for more because they don't feel it at the same level as neurotypical individuals. So it's important to have these small little breaks where we can stimulate ourselves to help us stay focused throughout the day. What does that mean? Going for a small walk throughout your lunch or during your break, going and getting coffee or tea, eating a small snack, so having kind of snacks planned ahead of time that you can eat, listening to music while you're taking a 10-minute break, chewing gum, going for a stretch. And I mentioned earlier, some individuals will have candies or jelly beans by their desk because that's their little dopamine break. So these aren't things that take a huge amount of time, but they're small things that release dopamine that make us feel good and help us with our focus. When it comes to our work, it's important to make sure that we have this work-life balance. We talk a lot about that as a society, but do we actually know what a work-life balance means? For me, there's a couple of clues that pop up that might tell me things aren't as balanced as I think they are. And that comes down to my basic health. So if I'm noticing that my sleep is being affected, I'm staying up late at night working on projects and waking up earlier, and this is happening consistently. It's been maybe a month or more of this occurring. Or maybe I'm so anxious with my work that I'm having a hard time falling asleep. That's a hint that things aren't as balanced as I would like. If I'm noticing my mood is off, I constantly feel irritable, sensitive, on edge. That's clues from our body that things aren't as balanced as we think they are. And a big one is nutrition. So if you're finding that you are frequently skipping meals, you don't have a consistent lunchtime or dinner time, your meals consist of quick on-the-go foods slash snacks, they're not even full meals, those are all clues that something isn't quite balanced here. And again, we know when we don't have the proper sleep and nutrition, that affects our mental health, that affects our performance at work, and it ends up becoming this cycle. And lastly, how are you at attending those important events in your life? Do you find yourself exhausted that you're missing out on socializing with friends? Do you find yourself so busy that you can't attend all those family events that you wish you could? Realistically, there are some things we're going to have to give up here and there. There's going to be some weeks where we are busier and we can't make events, or our sleep's going to be affected. That's normal. But when we talk about work-life balance, we talk about everything within reason. Everything has to be at an appropriate level for you and for your body. So if you're noticing that a lot of these things you're giving up and they're for a long period of time, that's a clue that maybe we need to slow down, readjust, or even look at making small changes, like making sure that we have at least half an hour every day that we can eat a proper lunch without having to worry about a meeting or appointment at that time. So there's a couple things that we can do to help our work-life balance. Number one, set a designated work time. This is so crucial if you're working from home or if you have a flexible work schedule. Flexibility is great. It allows us to go to appointments, to pick up our children from schools, but it could also be a bit of a crutch because without that, we could be ending up working longer hours and having a hard time balancing our life. So it's important to set it up. Is your day going to be 9 to 5? If you have an appointment, are you going to shift it? But keep that consistent structure. It's also important to tell your schedule with the people around you and your loved ones so that they can help keep you accountable. So they know if you typically are working from 9 to 5, they're not going to call you or try to meet with you that time. And they'll try to arrange it after, but they'll also keep you accountable if they notice that, well, it's been a couple of weeks and you've consistently been working late. So it helps to have that accountability partner. And next, give yourself some basic rules. This can look different for everyone. Some individuals say, I don't check emails after 6 o'clock or during the weekends. Other individuals say, I leave my laptop at work. I would rather just spend an extra half an hour, finish what I need to finish, than bring my laptop home and end up spending way longer because it's right at my fingertips and accessible. And some individuals say, I don't even have my email on my personal phone. I can only check it through my desktop. Yes, some of these sound extreme, but different things work for different people. If you're an individual who knows that when you have your phone or your laptop right in front of you, it's hard for you to disengage and to just leave work, then that might mean leaving work at work. So leaving your laptop in your office space, removing your work emails from your phone, or even setting up a specific time on your phone when you can check those emails. These are all things to consider to help with your work-life balance. Okay, so now comes the hard part. When do I disclose a diagnosis to my boss? This is such a tough decision to make, and it's quite personal. There is no right or wrong answer when it comes to whether you should disclose a diagnosis or not. It does depend on your comfort level and the accommodations that you need, as well as how you are managing your symptoms. So, as I always say, ADHD isn't just a label that we stick on. Each individual with ADHD looks different. So it's important to ask yourself, how severe are my symptoms? Have I been using strategies and have they been successful for me? Or is it something I'm consistently struggling with? And how is this job matching my strengths? So remember when we talked about earlier whether a job is the right fit for you? If you're noticing that this job is repetitive and it's dull and it doesn't involve a lot of movement and that's something you're struggling with, that might be a clue that you need some additional support. When it comes to ADHD, everyone's symptoms looks different. So some individuals struggle with impulsivity. They'll agree to so many tasks and then end up having to do more than they can handle. Some struggle with time management. So they often find they're underestimating how long a task is taking, end up taking it home, not working on it when they should, and staying up at night. Others might struggle with organization, misplacing important documents. And others might struggle with just forgetfulness and setting up meetings and tasks. So it's important to ask yourself, which one of these symptoms am I struggling with? And what is a strategy for me to work around it? So if it's something like forgetfulness, well, I can use a calendar, I'll take notes and monitor and see how that's going. But if we're struggling with impulsivity or time management, that might be where you need kind of someone to help keep you accountable. And maybe that does mean asking for help or disclosing to your boss that you need a little bit of additional support. And there's no shame in asking for that. So a couple things to consider when you're deciding on whether you want to disclose a diagnosis or not. Number one, assess your strengths and weaknesses. Look at your previous job evaluations or even your current job evaluations. What have the reviews told you? What have your coworkers or partners said? Do they say, wow, you work really great with people. You're great at managing. You're amazing at thinking on the spot and getting problems solved. Or do they sometimes say, you can work on your time management skills and maybe asking more questions when needed? And you can even think about this yourself. What part of the job is easy for you? What do you enjoy the most? And what part would you like to improve on? The reason why we ask ourselves these questions is this helps us know where we need support and whether that's adding a strategy or whether that's maybe needing more support and disclosing that to our boss. Just like anything in life, there's always benefits and risks to the choices that we make. When we choose to disclose a diagnosis, the people around us can take it very well. We can receive the accommodations that we need, the support. They could be eager to learn more, ask questions, and they could even be very understanding of our situations. Other individuals might not understand ADHD as much, and they might say, well, can't you just take a medication? Or why don't you just work harder? Everyone has a hard time with focus. And maybe that might involve you educating your employer or letting them know about ADHD and how it affects you specifically. This isn't a decision to take lightly. Take your time, see your comfort level, see the accommodations that you need. Some employers might need you to disclose a diagnosis for the necessary accommodations. Others might not. So think about what specifically you need. An alternative way to bring this up is instead of disclosing diagnosis, you can have a conversation about solution-oriented goals. So, you know what, I work best in a quiet environment. I realize that we have limited offices in the building. Would it be possible to share it with only one individual? Or would it be possible for me to take a smaller office instead of a bigger one, but that I can be by myself? I work most efficiently in the morning. So can we make sure that our big meetings are right earlier in the morning? Or my productivity increases when I'm able to move. Can I add a standing desk into the office? Small things like that are focused on how you can help the company, can help your boss be your best, and that is something that is a win-win situation. So that is another way that you can approach this if this is something that you are needing, but don't feel quite comfortable disclosing as well. My last 4 slides go over work accommodations. This discusses what areas you might need additional support, and what accommodations might work best for you. I got this all off of the CAT Act website, and I highly recommend you have a look. I've entered their link at the bottom as well as the very end of this presentation because they have some amazing tips and tricks for workplace and ADHD. If you're someone who struggles with those small details, you often find yourself making careless mistakes or missing important points. This is when you might need support from a coworker or supervisor, so someone to review your work before you hand it in. Someone to just check in with maybe once a week to go over the fine details. Even having a template or a checkoff sheet can be something that can help you to make sure you're going through all of the important points. So for example, if you have to send important emails and you notice that you're frequently forgetting to add the date, the time, or the address, having a template you can copy paste and then change the name accordingly. If you're someone who struggles with sustaining your attention when it's long meetings, you can ask to set up those meetings when you're most alert. So whether that's morning or right after lunch. It's also important to ask if you can audio tape those meetings. So, hey, I notice I'm more efficient when I'm able to review our meetings at a quieter time. Would it be okay for me to audio tape this? Have hard copies of instructions. So advocating for meeting minutes is a great, simple way to make sure you have those instructions during meetings. And even, if you decide to disclose to your boss you have ADHD, just say, I would appreciate if there's something specific for me that you would like me to work on, if you can just gather my attention beforehand. So, oh, hey, Bill, for this next part, I want you to, and it could be something as simple as just adding your name in the meeting. You do not have to disclose this to all your coworkers. You can keep it personal between you and your boss. And even using a timer for completing tasks. So the hardest part is always getting started. Telling yourself, I'm just going to work for 10, 15 minutes, and then I can at least go take a stretch break and come back. So that's something that we can do. And again, some of these similar strategies can be used if you have a mind that wanders or you have difficulty listening. So taking your own notes during meetings can really help you focus in, asking for a summary at the end, and even things like chewing gum, moving your body, having something small you can fidget with can all help with keeping you focused in. If you struggle with completing tasks or following instructions, that's when you might need those check-ins with a supervisor. That's when you want to make sure you have your to-do list and your reminders. I make a to-do list every morning because it's, number one, it feels good when you check it off, but number two, it helps keep you accountable for even the small things. And print out, use visuals for whatever it is you're completing, whether it's that visual checklist, whether it's creating a planner for things to do, but have that something visual you can see. If you struggle with staying organized for tasks, find a system that works for you and keep it simple. So some people say, man, like I tried the binder system. I always end up forgetting to hole punch. I put the paper to the side and then I lose it. So if a binder system doesn't work for you, have one of those folders where you can just slip it in. Or have a box where you can just put your important documents and just color code it. Use a whiteboard. So if it's something that you want to just quickly write down, like remember to put your paper away, you can do that. And let's use technology. Things like QuickBook is a really great app that can help us keep track of things, and especially if you're self-employed. And limit the number of products, so the number of things that you're doing all at once. If you tend to avoid tasks or keep putting them off because you're not interested, that's when having someone keep you accountable, whether it's a coworker or even a partner. Plan those breaks ahead of time and balance something that's mundane with something that you enjoy. So for me as a psychologist, report writing isn't always the funnest thing to do, but I do quite enjoy making these presentations. So I try to balance my report writing days with days where I get to make PowerPoints as well. So keeping that balance in there. If you lose important items, we've already talked about this, but having your important box or tray. So this isn't just for paperwork, but this could be like a drop-off spot at home or at work where it's like, this is where I put my wallet, my keys, and my suitcase. So making sure you have a designated drop-off place. Practice the habit. Practice, practice, practice. It gets our body ending up doing it without noticing it. And do your check-in before you leave your location. So if it's things like, I always need to have my suitcase, my wallet, and my phone, and my keys, those are the 4 things I need, making sure you check for those 4 things. If you're an individual who tends to be easily distracted, try to find a quiet work environment. So even having things like walls that are painted bright colors or a bunch of visuals everywhere, that can be super distracted. So keep your visuals to maybe your checklist, your to-do list, and keeping it minimal. Using noise canceling headphones can be a huge one as well. And even asking for priority seating. So if your office space is right next to the printer and you easily get distracted from people, maybe asking for a place that maybe isn't as busy. And for individuals who are forgetful, our electronics are so helpful with that. Setting reminders and timers and alarms are really important. Following up meetings or anything that was said verbally with an email, that way you have a hard copy to review. So if someone just asks you to do something kind of quickly in the hall, making sure you send it with an email like, hey, I'll get to this in a couple of days. Thanks for letting me know, and I'll keep you updated. So you have a hard copy to review. And use your charts. Use those cheat sheets, those tips that tell you, did you check this, complete this, and do this? Those are very helpful because oftentimes when we are forgetful, we need to use those externals to help with our memory. And finally, if you struggle with fidgeting or feeling quite squirmy or edgy in your seat, those fidget toys or little stress gadgets can really help us out. So whether it's a ball for you to squeeze, a nut and bolt, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Asking for maybe a private workplace so you can do your stretches that you're able to do, stand up and walk around, or have even a standing desk can really help. And even explaining to coworkers around why you need movement. So, I focus better when I'm able to move or stretch. So is it okay if we take a 5-minute break in between our meetings? And similar, if you have a hard time staying in your seat, take notes during your meetings, ask for those breaks, and even exercising during lunchtime can be a great way to get that movement. So if you are part of a gym, seeing if they have any classes during lunchtime that you can go into. If not, even just going out for a walk can be very helpful. And if you're always needing to be on the go, similar things as well, but planning ahead of time movement breaks. So whether that's I'm going to go to the photocopier and print this off, I'm going to go grab the mail, I'm going for a coffee, I need to go talk to a coworker, planning ahead and spacing those out so you're able to have those movement breaks in between your work. Some individuals even like having a whiteboard that they can stand up and get creative and write their ideas on because it helps them more than just staying still in their desk. And if you are the individual, lastly, who tends to be impulsive, take notes of your thoughts when you tend to say yes. And don't be scared to give yourself a phrase or something that can keep you accountable. So, oh, I'm really interested in that. Let me check my schedule. Or, oh, yes, that does seem like something that I can fit in, but I just want to double check my calendar to make sure that I can give you my full attention for it. And so find a phrase and use that before fully committing to something. These final slides go over our resources, and with this, I provided you with some websites, some different apps, some different community resources that we'll quickly go over together to discuss. So when it comes to CalLearn, we have a number of different resources for adults and families who are looking for ADHD support. So number one, in addition to these webinars that we've been doing once a month, we've also been doing support groups once a month, and they've been specifically targeted to individuals with ADHD because we've noticed that that's where the greatest demands are. So these support groups are completely free, and you can choose what day or time works best. I think that we give you 2 different options, but this is where you meet with other individuals as well as the facilitator and go over some different things that you might need support with as well. On top of that, we also have counseling and ADHD coaching. So CanLearn does offer counseling by psychologists and provisional psychologists. And we also have individuals who have been trained and specialized in ADHD coaching as well. So these are two options for you to definitely look at and see. The ADHD coaching and counseling both have a fee. However, it doesn't hurt to call or check in because we always try to get funding or financial assistance to the best of our ability. So if this is a service that you might not be able to afford, call and check in and see if there's any availability for that. We also have a great adult ADHD group called Let's Talk ADHD. So this is where individuals meet once a week and they it's a bit of psychoeducation. You go over ADHD, some strategies and accommodations as well. And it's a great group as well to find support and accountability. And if you're an individual with a child with ADHD, I highly recommend Calm Kids Happy Family. This is a parent group where parents meet with facilitators and go over a number of different social emotional learning strategies and education to best help support their child as well. That being said, CanLearn Society isn't the only option that you can look into. There's a number of different community resources. I've provided you here with a link of ADHD coaching in Alberta, support groups for ADHD in Alberta, and even an ADHD forum where adults with ADHD post different things that they're struggling with or that's working for them, or asking questions so that they can help support one another and create this community. And that would also worthwhile to look into if you need that additional support. In terms of applications, this is something that we've gone over in our previous webinar for adult ADHD, but I thought it was important to just revisit. These are a number of different apps that we can download to help us with organization, productivity, or time management. So if you are someone who struggles with keeping track of receipts and finances, QuickBook might be a really great one for you to stay organized. Dropbox is a great one if your computer ever crashes or if you don't have your laptop. It's kind of like an online domain where you can go access it from there. And you can use productivity apps like Tomato Timer, which is pretty much the Pomodoro techniques, which say that, we work for 25 minutes and then we take a 5-minute break. Notion is also a great one for organization and productivity and time management, kind of like a 3-in-1. Notion is an app that I've recently come across where you can set in a project and all the different activities that need to be due. You can add people's emails and assign them to different tasks. You can add deadlines, you can add phone numbers and set up meetings. And it's a great one because you can do it for work, but also for like any personal things like planning a birthday party or even a wedding. So I recommend you look at that one as well. And finally, the last 2 slides that I have are for websites and books. I always say the more we build awareness, the more we build understanding, the stronger we are. And it's important to continually learn about ourselves and learn about our ADHD and how it impacts us. So I'm sure you're familiar with many of these websites, but it's so important to keep looking and keep reading and learning. The last one that I have there is Perfect Resume. Although this one isn't specifically to ADHD, it is a great one to help manage your resume and stay organized. So I have added that one as well. And finally, we've provided a list of some ADHD-friendly books for you to read that whether you, a loved one, or a coworker, if you want to learn more about ADHD, understand how some different strategies may help, these would be great ones to look into. ADHD is a big topic, and I know we've only hit the surface, but I hope we continue talking about this and learning and understanding ourselves as well as others around us better, because this is an important topic. And you're not alone as you're going through this. It's important to find what works for you and to build that support and to ask for help when needed. I've provided my email at the very end if ever you wanted to ask a specific question or look into a specific resource. And if any of the groups that we've mentioned above sound interesting, I've also provided the email of our program coordinator. Her name is Jamie. So you can feel free to email her if there's any specific groups that you would be interested in as well. For now, take care, and I'll see you at the next webinar. Bye.